My people, we're doing a quick chapter. Chapter 41, UFO Mystery, Jack Perrin. When the lights of the cars are curved by something, with a title, A Flying Disc That Crashes, the Daily Express on the 12th of April tells the strange tale that follows. In Melbourne, Australia. This one is for you, Nick. The driver Ronald Sullivan was circulating at moonrise when the lights of his car were curved to the right in an inexplicable way. If I had followed their trajectory, I would have gone out of the street, he told the police of Maryborough, near Melbourne. I could only stop in time, break in time. It was then that I saw in a nearby field, a mix of all of the lights of the solar spectrum, but with a little bit of gaseous aspect. There it lifted an object with about 3 meters and it disappeared. Later on, he came back to the place of the incident and he knew that another driver, Mr. Gary Taylor, had died on the previous night on an accident precisely on the same spot. The police investigated and discovered on a nearby field a circular depression of 2 to 5 inches, 5 to 13 centimeters of depth, and with about 1.5 meters of diameter. They considered Mr. Sullivan, 38 years old, a man of business, very respectful, serious and intelligent, and that, after all, he didn't believe in flying saucers. When Dr. Bernard Finch sent us the copy of the Associated Press that he had got privately, we discovered that the weird experience of Mr. Sullivan occurred on the 4th of April, and that he had gone back to the spot on the 8th, and that the fatal accident of Mr. Taylor had occurred on the 7th of April on the street of Bendigo to St. Arnaud, district of Victoria. Some days later, we received a selection of articles from the press of our Australian friends that gave us a few more details about this subject. After the object flew to the nearby field, Mr. Sullivan went to Witchproof to repair his lights of his car, but they had no problem at all. The scene of the observation and the accident 3 days later is on the right side of the a tar road, at about 15 kilometers east of Biliba and 180 kilometers northeast of Melbourne. The alcohol test made by Mr. Taylor after the death was negative. When the observation and of the deviation of the car lights of Mr. Sullivan, there was moonlight. When the fatal accident of Mr. Taylor, the night there was no moon. Okay? The police of Maryborough, Castlemaine, Biliba and Newstead declared that they had received reports of observations of flying saucers at the region. Okay guys, so this is chapter 41, and let me see if 42 is not too big, guys. 1, 2. Okay, it's not too big, guys. We can do this one. Okay, so this chapter 42, the title is called Pilots Observe the UFO. Okay, guys? So, some pilots. Hope there's some airplane. I do like airplane stories. Okay, so we're gonna do a little deep dive on the observations of UFOs made by military or civil pilots. And they're much more frequent than the public thinks. The dossiers of the groups of study specialized contain a few hundreds of these cases. Let's see by title example some of the most known cases, okay? First case, Chile, 1971, 28th of December, Day of the Innocents. A cargo airplane, Boeing 727 from the company LAN, Líneas Aéreas Nacionales, was making a flight 892 from Punta Arenas to Santiago. It was flying over Balmaceda. On board there was a pilot, Ricardo France, and 2 men of the tripulation, Eduardo Ortiz and Victor Rubio. The sky had just become dark. It was 23 hours when it started for the 3 men and one of the most strangest adventures. The pilot, Ricardo France, told the magazine Chilena via his adventure, and he says, I observed, and suddenly in the direction of the Pacific, a light that looked to me to be a star. It was reddish and I thought it was planet Mars. I didn't give much attention, but later when we flew over Ancud, I saw that this light was emitting some flashes. I thought that Mars should be invisible that night, and I told my friend co-pilot that it intrigued me. And I also told the flight engineer. Both told me that it was an airplane. However, the light that was first south of Ancud dislocated in direction to north. I called Puerto Montt to ask if there was any plane nearby. On the moment that I asked for that communication, I saw the light increase considerably of intensity to disappear straight away. Guys, I've seen this happen. I've seen a star appear in front of my window. It beamed up for about 10-15 seconds, and then it started beaming down, and then it disappeared. I can promise for the health of my kids that I saw that. Guys, I've told you before. And I even won $50 like 5 minutes later on my friend's challenge prize, raffle tickets, kind of. And then it left a constellation of minuscule points. When the pilot friends received the answer that there was no aerial traffic on the region, the phenomenon happened. It should have, he said, it was the UFO. That's what I also said when I won the raffles right after I saw the UFO appear, guys. I knew there was going to be a raffle game that night, and I didn't play. And I didn't want to play because I knew it was from America, and the transportation from America to Portugal is very expensive, and that wouldn't be worth the prize. But because my friend told that it was $50 and I had PayPal, I said, why not? I may as well win my first money from PayPal, and the UFO made me win it, guys. I can promise you that. Okay, let's continue. The communications tower answered, it could have been a UFO. They answered in a jokey way. He said that apparently it was a UFO, but immediately the tower of control of Puerto Montt made a relation between the information and the day of the innocence. I responded that confirmed that we were seeing since midnight, since that hour that we didn't stop seeing the light. But when I called the tower, I believed they were all gonna cry laughing. They were gonna die laughing. The airplane continued its way, approximating itself to Chilean. The clouds had purple tone due to the eruption of the volcano Villarrica, and the tripulation was all very happy and surprised. Quite beautiful, right, guys? After Temuco, we saw a line of 5 reddish lights and other 3 weaker lights a little bit behind. The 5 dislocated parallelly to the airplane at the same velocity, and next 3 of them remained behind to the side of the mountains. Ricardo had at his place conversations with reporters from the magazine Via and with other pilots, his friends, and 2 North American scientists interested in his story. He exchanged with them his impressions about the distance that these weird lights were, explaining that the distance could be very relative in function of the size of the object that produced the light. However, he proposed as an estimate that the line of red lights would be at about 10 kilometers of the airplane. At this moment, Santiago responded to us. Give us please your position and tell us again what you are observing. We told him that we were observing 8 lights, and they responded, that is becoming more serious. We're gonna make a special report. Now comes a dramatic narrative. At this time, there was a dialogue that for many can seem incredible, but it was recorded in magnetic band. We will present textually some part of this talk. Guys, it's gonna become crazy. Control tower. Can you tell us the velocity of the objects, pilot? The same as us, Mach 0.84. The intensity of the light changes constantly. Tower received, pilot. Now the lights are uniting at an incredible velocity. After they separate and they maintain between them an irregular distance. For your information, now there are 5 lights. 3 have passed to the front and 2 remained at the same velocity as the airplane. The tower says, can you confirm if the objects non-identified have approximated the airplane? Respond. The pilot says, no, they remain at a safe distance of 10 to 12 miles. At this moment, the 4 are in perfect formation. Therefore, the 4 got together. Could it be that the other 4 joined them? Now there are 8 in total. There is an entire line that follows the airplane, and it flies on the same direction and at the same velocity. The pilot friends told the magazine Via that when there were 5 lights in the fixed position, 2 of them in front, 1 in the middle, and 2 behind. The third one would give a jump and would fuse with the second one, forming forming one only light. Crazy, guys. Oh my god. Forming only one light. Afterwards, it would retreat, and the last one would start to emit some flashes. The other one would respond, but later they is extinguished. Freaking crazy, guys. A unique experience. The pilot, Ricardo, he had 37 years of age. He married with Carmen Zuniga, a worker at the National Bank, and he has 2 kids of 4 and 6 years old respectively, and one man, he is a kind man that talks about the subject with calm, and he has 16 years of air flight, and he talks, once he was piloting a Curtiss 646. He lost one of the front rotors of the airplane. During a flight in Osorno, he was flying as a co-pilot on board a DC-3 that smashed against the ground. Even him was miraculously hanging on some trees. He spent all the time on aerial adventures, and he spent 2 years on the Air Force of the United States. When he talks about UFOs, he's prudent. He says, I believe in UFOs as being flying objects non-identified. But if you talk to me as flying saucers, I have a terrible doubt. Look, I'm shivering all over, guys. I am convinced that there is life on other planets, and that we've seen on the 28th of December, question mark, I don't know. Maybe they were electric waves that came from somewhere else, vehicles, question mark, I'm not sure. Ricardo indicated as well that the mysterious lights were reddish and that they would grow in intensity periodically. Okay, let me just do a quick break, guys. When I saw that star, it wasn't reddish, it was yellow, the same color as a star. When it beamed up, it became more whitish, I think. And then when it beamed down, it came back to being yellow, and then it disappeared because it looked like a little star, like a little yellow white, okay? He said that in no moment he felt any fear. I had a great curiosity and a great emotion to see that the first time in 17 years of air flight, something like this, sorry. Even though one of the explanations for these lights could be that they were electrical discharges, the velocities and the trajectory and the following of the airplane take that theory to the ground, okay? The lights were passing from one side to the other of the airplane at an impressive velocity. On the other side, you cannot change the intensity of the lights, nor pass at the velocity of sound for suddenly. Pass on the velocity of the sound suddenly, because I calculated that these lights should reach this velocity when they passed in front of our airplane. These lights were circular, capable of going perfectly on a line. This pilot participates on studies about the polar road, this polar road that will connect Chile to Australia, passing through the South Pole. He observed with humor that this was one of the zones where they observed precisely these little creatures. So you can see, guys, that even today I was talking with my friend Sidvich about Antarctica, and he was telling me that nothing happens there. Wait a second. Okay, so guys, this pilot also participates in studies over Antarctica. And on one of these studies, all of the magnetic instruments of the bases went down. And that this time, that didn't happen with the control machine of this airplane. He also says, Ricardo also says that The board, the airplane radar was fine during the whole flight. It's not to. He says that it's not to worry. It's not to suspect because a radar only finds another airplane if this airplane also has a radar. Therefore, if any of them don't have that radar, they will not know of the presence of each other. The adventure of the crew of the flight 892 started at 23 hours of the 28th of December and ended at midnight and a half of the next day. The pilots and the crew and the aerial crews represent 17% of the people that have seen UFOs in the United States and are therefore these cases that the ufologists do feel supported on their fight to convince the skeptic about their strange visions. The magazine Via has the following subtitle: Discs in Argentina. One of the information about the incident of Tandil, on which we present this part because we think it's interesting. The object that emitted lights on various colors, red, green, and yellow, appeared first over the train station to move to the southwest sector of the city, stopping at the height of the Park of Independence. There, it started doing some circles. People were completely surprised, the people that were walking in the city. At that time, the motors of about 500 cars that were driving in that sector suddenly, inexplicably stopped. A telegram of the agency EFE diffused reported that Norma Aceto de Cruz, that had told to the radio of Tandil what she had seen when she was walking on that spot. The car, well, she wasn't walking, she was driving with her husband. Our modest old Ford Type A suddenly stopped with no reason at all. When a strong light appeared, a very strong, intense light appeared over us, me and my husband started to feel a terrible sensation of cold, and when the disc disappeared and we sunk to reality, we have noticed that we have seen a giant disc that was emitting colors and was advancing slowly in our direction at low height. Suddenly, it turned over itself and it disappeared at great velocity. Guys, this is a mothership, guys. Can you see? That's a mothership. It's like about, I don't know, 90 feet. On the 2nd of February of 1967, actually motherships can be much bigger, guys, okay? 2nd February of 1967, this case is called Peru, Brazil, and Spain. On the 2nd of February 67, a DC-4 of Fawcett Peruvian Airlines, during a flight to Piura, Paralima, was escorted by a UFO for more than 1 hour. The appearing of this... Okay, just a brief stop here, guys. Remember the story of the UFO that I told you about my friend? The little secret? He also told me that one of the saucers followed the airplane until the airplane landed, because we have an airport like 20 kilometers away, going north more or less. So they do seem to like to escort airplanes. The appearing of this craft provoked a malfunction on the airplane radio, and the reduction of intensity of the on the interior illumination of the airplane. The passengers were so scared seeing the maneuvers that this object was doing, and they started panicking. After the UFO disappeared suddenly, the UFO came back accompanied with another similar saucer, but finally they disappeared at the same time at an hallucinating velocity. The Brazilian Diary of the Night of São Paulo of the 9th of February 1973 tells that some days before, a flying saucer followed for more than 20 minutes an airplane Boeing 737 of the airlines Mozambique, when this one was doing a night flyby between Beira and Lourenço Marques. Guys, Lourenço Marques is very interesting because in Mozambique, Lourenço Marques is when my grandfather lived with my mother, my grandmother, and my uncle. And this is also in Mozambique, where the parents of a big friend of mine saw a mothership, orange colored, that came on the horizon. They were, dating in the beach, and it looked like a saucer, but very round, and it was very orange, and it followed from one side of the horizon to the other one in front of them. It stopped, and then it came back where it came from. And both of them, they saw it, so we have two people, remember. The airplane was flying at an altitude of 8,400 meters and a velocity of 850 kilometers per hour. When the pilot saw an object in a strange form that was following the airplane, it had red lights that would turn on and turn off alternately. So airplanes do have the red color blinking. So guys, they do tend to mimic what our airplanes do, guys. The commander of the airplane, Gilberto Cardoso, called to the cabin the assistants of board, so that with the pilots they could attest the fact. After this was presented on a report to the civil and military services. On the 16th of July 1973, Mr. Miguel Romero Fernandez of Cordoba was flying an airplane full of water to extinguish an airplane near a forest over Startit. between Figueras and Palamos in Spain. It was 18:30 o'clock in the afternoon, and this craft was at about 900 meters altitude. A little before it arrived to the Midas Islands, the pilot noticed that to his left, there was an object unknown. This found at about 100 meters distance. To not collide with this one, Cordoba turned rapidly, but the object continued maintaining its position in comparison to the airplane. The pilots communicated to the base that it was having difficulties and continued to do maneuvers to try to deviate itself from the object, going up and down, okay? Without being able to keep the UFO at a safe distance. On the moment that the pilot was preparing to make a forced landing at the beach of Pals, the object disappeared, elevating itself very rapidly. On an interview following the incident, the pilot said that for moments he thought that the object was only 10 meters from him, and it was amazing, and it was big in dimension. It was about 20 meters height and 10 meters diameter. It looked like a rugby ball when it was vertical, but it looked like the underneath part was cut. It was kind of floating at an altitude of 900 to 1,500 meters, and it was making a lot of changes in direction, the way to stay on the same position to the airplane. So it was making sure that it kept the same distance for the airplane, kind of showing, kind of proving something to the pilot, like we can do whatever we want, playing with him in a way. It was making several changes in direction to be in the same position to the airplane. Cordova accentuates that after he talked with the base, the radio stopped working. The UFO was producing a very strong noise, similar to a continuous thunder, and the color varied from green, which was not as strong on the top parts, and reddish orange on the base. When he made an appeal through the radio, he didn't have the courage to say what he was seeing, because he knew that they would all be hearing on the tower of emission station and the points of observation of Icona, such as the airports. When he arrived at the base of Amparia Brava, he was very agitated and excited, and he talked to a commander of the airplane, Raga, of the base of Pani, which told him to calm down because he wasn't the first nor the last to see these kind of things. Okay, guys, this was chapter 42. I can only tell you guys, we're not gonna do any more today, but I'll leave you the name to leave you with a little bit of ice cream on your ears. And the next chapter is gonna be called UFO attacks a military helicopter. Okay? So stay blessed, my people. Hope you're doing fine. Let's just put a little quick music before we leave. And we're ready to go, guys. Beautiful day today. I'm resting because last night it was quite kind of rough. Let's start with this one. He's on a mission, interviewing adventurers in the lounge, searching for answers about the mysterious lives in Mount Shasta, in the dead of night, and the rest of the world. Ancient history, uncovering the truth, delving into questions about unknown worlds, UFOs in the sky, shining bright. What stories behind those lights? Oh, Jumpy keeps asking, digging deep, looking at witnesses who can see Mount Shasta secrets they're about to unfold. The truth about the land waiting to be told. Stay blessed, my people. John P. loves you.